Welcome back. Again, this is Scott Harris. For insurance purposes, I'm reviewing some of the key runs in my collection. And today we're going to be looking at the first half of my Boy Comics collection. We'll be looking at issues 5 to 59. Quick rundown: Boy Comics began publication in 1942. The first issue was number 3. Ended in 1956 with issue 119. Each of those issues started Crime Busters, started off as a superhero and kind of ended up as a boy detective by the end. It's one of the only long-running superhero titles to survive from the Golden Age into the Code era. And we're going to start with number 5. I'm missing 4 issues of this run. I'm missing issues 3, 4, 7, and 10. But we'll be looking at the rest of them over the course of these 2 videos. Charles Biro did the covers of all the issues except for just a couple right at the end. This is obviously a classic wartime cover of some Japanese soldiers driving a tank. They're about to run over the boy stars of the series: Young Robin Hood, Bombshell Boy of War, Swoop Storm, Yankee Longago, who you'll notice is wearing a Jughead style hat here, and of course Crime Buster and Squeaks. I've seen this issue online. A lot of times claim that this is a Alex Schomburg cover. It's not, although it has certain elements obviously that are similar to Schomburg. It's Charles Biro. Got this comic a couple years ago for $93 at a comic show. Alright, here's my copy of Boy Comics number 6. This is a CGC 4.0 copy, which I'm very happy with because when I bought it off eBay, it was advertised as a 3.0. It's a very solid copy. This is considered to be a classic cover. There's Iron Jaw, Crime Buster's #1 arch enemy, and as you can see, he's gnawing on Crime Buster's arm. Got a creepy haunted house type building in the background. I got a real steal on this because the grade was underreported. I paid $193 for it. If you go online and look up CGC 4.0s, most dealers will be asking about $450. So I'm very pleased with that purchase. Got a real steal there. Alright, missing number 7, but here we are back with number 8. Let's see if I can get the whole book there for you. It claims that Iron Jaw dies in this issue. He doesn't. There's another Iron Jaw cover. My copy is really rough. The spine is almost completely deteriorated. You can see the guy was originally asking $80 for it. I got it for significantly less than that. But still a classic wartime issue. It's kind of an odd man out, though, considering how classic the issues around it are. Specifically, the infamous Boy Comics number 9, featuring the menace of He She, which is a villain who's half man and half woman, split right down the middle. The left half is female, the right half is male. The story is just as crazy as the cover, which involves Iron Jaw dripping blood and, for some reason, the Statue of Liberty while there's a supernova going on. I don't know. This is a comic a lot of Golden Age collectors look for because it's just so crazy and she's so weird. So even if you're not a Crime Buster or Charles Biro fan, that's kind of a key issue. I am missing number 10. Here's my copy of number 11. Another classic cover, maybe the most famous cover in the series, although I like the cover for 10 better. Iron Jaw. Charles Biro had a thing for dames wearing red dresses. You'll see several more coming up. So here's the great Iron Jaw cover. My copy is missing 1 page on the inside. Luckily for me, it doesn't affect any of the stories. It's the text page. Someone carefully cut it out with a razor back in the 40s. I guess they must have been a big Daredevil fan. Because it's missing that page, I was able to get it for only $60 with the page. In this condition, the copy would probably be worth about $250. As it is, I think $60 is a real steal for it anyway. It's probably worth, and that was a couple years ago. It's probably worth noticeably more now. All right, number 12. Here's a nice war cover. We have some caricatured Japanese soldiers, although for World War II comics, the caricature is actually not that egregious. And they're torturing an Allied soldier by giving him a hot foot. I mean, he looks pretty beat up, but all things considered, a Hotfoot is really not that bad. On the other hand, Crime Buster, you can see here, he shot this dude right through the hand. He's like, suck it. Alright, here's my copy of number 13. Another wartime cover. There's a bunch of villagers being lined up against the wall to be shot. Luckily, Crime Buster's there to get them out. This was only produced with one staple. A lot of the wartime books were, because there's metal shortages. So instead of two staples, only one. It means that a lot of comics from this period, from this publisher, the covers are detached or loose. This one is still connected, but it is kind of loose. You can see a couple tears right here by the staple. It's just one of the hazards of the time period. Get a little extra light on the subject here. This is number 14. This is a low grade copy. The cover is actually the back cover is missing entirely. Let's see here. Oops. But I got it very cheap. It's kind of a fill-in for me. I do eventually want to replace this one. And it's another Iron Jaw cover. I'm not actually an Iron Jaw fan. So luckily for me, he dies in this issue, number 15, which has a crazy cover. See, make sure you can see that okay with the ripples on the bag there. But it's a giant rodent man. He's got one of the femme fatales here, maidens in distress, that Biro loves in these early issues. She's tied up, and he's releasing a bunch of rats to eat her inside this cage. Luckily, Crime Buster's there. Nothing really like that actually takes place in the comic. Here's a cover I really like quite a bit. You'll notice that this time the maiden in distress here is not wearing a red dress, but instead a very mod 40s jacket skirt combo. But I always like this not just for the suit of armor coming to kill him, but also the really creepy looking mad scientist guy down at the bottom who's like, yeah, look what I done. Woohoo! This is actually a pretty nice copy. There's some deterioration on the spine, but it's probably a solid 4.0 in my book. This is a bit lower grade, but it's a classic war cover. Getting a little reflection there, so you can see that. It's, yeah, nighttime raids, some bombers, and as you can see, is Crime Buster leading the charge with a giant American flag. Great wartime cover. As I said, my copy's a little bit lower grade, but, you know, they can't all be high grade. Here's one that is a bit higher grade. This is a nice mid-grade copy. It's got a spine split down here, a little bit of damage at the top, but this is a solid mid-grade 4.5 or 5.0 even. Featuring an extremely violent car crash. Once again, Crime Buster manages to leap out of the way. Biro is not the best artist in the world, but he has a few tricks, and I like the way he has the giant moon highlighting Crime Buster. It's a cool cover, a very cool cover. And here we have 19. This is probably my favorite issue of the whole run. There's a couple others we'll get to that are close. My copy is really rough. It's got tape all along the spine. I got a whole bunch from the same collection that all have that, and a couple extra staples added as well. Someone was really concerned about it falling apart. So it's not falling apart, man. You couldn't get this book apart with a crowbar. And this has the crazy story. You see the guy here with no legs who just got pitched like a bowling ball in front of the train. That does actually happen in this issue. One of the craziest, I've talked about this before, one of the craziest stories where the guy here is in the will of the guy he murders, but with one caveat: he himself has to become a double amputee. So in order to do that, he has a a doctor cut his legs off, and then everything goes downhill from there, as you might expect when the big part of your plan is to have someone cut your legs off. Just, I don't know, crime does not pay. Another cool cover, another lady in need of saving with a red dress, bright red dresses. Here we have a really creepy looking old man jumping out of a coffin. This has nothing to do with his story. We've got a nice date stamp here from December 11th. I think that's 44 at this point. And I do have several more date stamps coming up. Cool cover. This cover, not so great. Sort of shows some of Bairo's limitations as an artist. The perspective is wonky, and it's just like a lot of little figures. It is, I mean, if you're into boxing, it's cool because he's fighting a boxer, and there's a bunch of, classic 40s like boxing stuff here going on. But we've kind of passed the era of the best covers now. Bairo's covers are starting to get a little bit lame. They're still decent, not as lame as they're going to be later on, as we'll see. And here's another cover that doesn't really do it for me. Got some divers down here examining a shipwreck, and the guy up here is cutting their air hoses. I'm sure he probably thought it was going to be better than it ended up being. I do like the yellow, of course, and this is a nice copy. Here's a classic golf cover where the guy's been impaled by the flag for the 13th hole. It's just hilarious. Also, we've got Squeaks hitting a guy with the head with a golf club again. Bairo's not the best artist at perspective. Foreshortening is just wonky. But you cannot beat a guy being stabbed to death with the flag for a golf hole. Another classic cover. Another lady in red being menaced. This is a pretty decent copy. There is some paper loss here. There's a tape pull or something, and there's some spine deterioration here. But it's a nice copy. It presents very well. It's solid. And this does happen in the story. The girl actually gets killed. The guy tightens her straitjacket to the point where he crushes her to death. That's the kind of story we start getting around this time from Boy. Stories start getting better even as the covers are getting worse. This is a cool cover, though, and I have a nice looking copy of it, too. This is issue 25. This does not happen. Lady in red here is not wearing a dress. She's wearing like a bikini sort of thing. Although, being from 1945, bikinis were kind of a new thing. So this is more shorts, but whatever. A guy dressed as Satan is throwing knives at him. Why? Well, you have to ask Satan, I guess. Here's an interesting cover. Guy got cinder blocks on his feet. He's being dumped in the ocean. But the real interesting part is this over here. Like the mighty burst of an atom. Got an A-bomb explosion on the cover. Date of this comic is October 1945. Obviously, the A-bomb was just detonated in August. My guess is that they had to have added this like right before this went to press in order for this to get on stands that quickly. I mean, usually even in the golden age, it was at least a month in advance. So they could not have been sending this to the publisher any later than the beginning of September. So my guess is they were probably had all the stories done and were just sending it to printer when the A-bomb dropped, and they added the A-bomb. This has got to be, I would say, it's the earliest A-bomb cover, except for Action Comics actually had an A-bomb cover before the A-bomb, which got them in trouble with the government because they thought they were stealing government secrets. Very nice copy, number 27. It does have some tanning, but it's a very solid, good-looking copy. Another classic New York City subway motif. We do see a lot of those in these issues, since the stories, they don't really name it as New York, but it's obviously New York. And here we are. One of the gems of my collection, Boy Comics 28. There's nothing particularly interesting about this comic, except for the fact that it was a giant pain in the ass for me to find. I have a pretty nice copy. It does have some tears at the staple. Again, only produced with one staple, even though this is getting into 46 now. For whatever reason, this issue seems to be much more difficult to find than any of the ones around it. It's the last issue I needed to finish my run from 11 to 119. And I looked for it for quite a long time before I found an affordable copy. If you go on eBay, you can find copies, but they're ridiculously expensive. Here's another from the same collection with the tape along the spine. Nothing particularly remarkable about that. Here's number 30, more tape on the spine, another date stamp. This is kind of a minor key because it reprints Crimebuster's first appearance from Boy Comics number 3. So it's a retelling of his origin story. Here's a nice copy of Boy Comics 31. It's probably a 5.5. Has some wear here. It looks more worn than it actually is. It's basically just the colors rubbed off. It's not really damage. A little bit of damage down here. It looks like it might be rat chew, but luckily the rats got bored after like 3 bites. So it's a 5.5 at least. I would tend to give it a golden age bump to a 6. Again, another cluttered Biro cover, not his best. But it is cool because it gives it like some, mid-late 40s nightlife with the Cabana Club. I mean, you get the flavor of the time period. So that's very cool. 32, again, kind of a boring cover. Biro's really kind of losing it here. You see the figures are smaller. You get all this just expanse of empty space. He gets these big ideas, like the one with the people underwater. He has these ideas. He's like, it would be great if I have a scene with a bunch of loggers and some logging. Well, it could be great, except for then he does this. Like, here's the lady in red this time down here, and she's like smaller than my thumb. Here's Crimebuster. Like, this is the only part of the cover that matters right here. Why? Jeez. Great writer. Just had some artistic limitations. This is a cover, on the other hand, that I like quite a bit because it's one of the only covers, maybe the only cover, that has a Crimebuster logo on the cover. The other issues, he's in every issue, and he's on most of the covers. Not all of them, but most of them. But this is the only one that has a Crimebuster logo. So, for that reason alone, I am a big fan of this cover. We also saw there an airplane on that cover. We're going to see a lot more airplanes. Biro really starts getting into doing airplane covers. Here's another lady in red. This time she's about to throw herself out a window. I think in the story she does, in fact, throw herself out the window. Nice yellow. He likes to do this rainbow thing, I guess, to make the logo pop. Here it is again, red, yellow, blue. Like this cover quite a bit. Who is behind that curtain? Well, Jesus. Now I'm wondering myself who's behind that curtain. The answer is really not that interesting, but this was the first issue of Boy Comics I got. It has a tape pull here, lower grade, but it's solid. I mean, it's in no danger of coming apart. The staples firmly attached, all the pages are firmly attached. It's probably a 3.0, maybe even a 3.5, although the tape pull's right in the middle of the text box, so that makes it a little bit worse. Some great stories. This is like the prime run right here. The stories in this era are by far the best in the whole series. Say from starting around maybe 28 up to 43 or so. This is one of the best issues in the run. The cover does kind of give it away a little bit, but it's a crazy story with this guy and his son. This guy's got a daughter. He's pimping her out, and then he basically is trying to rook this guy in a card game, and instead they end up making a deal where he sells his daughter to the guy for $10,000 as a sex slave, basically. And then Crimebuster shows up and breaks the thing up, and they discover that he's been using her to lure gamblers to his house, and then they murder him and throw him in a big pit. And they cover it with a rock. And then when they roll the rock, there's just like a pit full of dead bodies. It's like, what the hell? Welcome to the 40s. When we say things are bad today.